So this is definitely the number one myth. Creatine damages your kidneys. So when you take in creatine to the body, it gets stored as creatine, but when you metabolize it, sort of thinking leaking from the muscle, it gets leaked out as creatinine. And most people watching is like, oh, that was on my blood requisition form. And right below creatinine was something called eGFR. So glomerular filtration rate is an estimation of your kidney health. So the problem is when individuals on creatine supplementation, they go to their doctor for their annual blood work, their creatinine might be a little bit elevated, and that's only from the breakdown of the compound. And then, unfortunately, their filtration rate is lower. So then their doctor gets really surprised, and they're like, stop taking creatine because it's hurting your kidneys. What typically happens is they go back or stopping creatine, and then they check their kidneys again, and it's fine. So I would say 99 out of 100 times that it's a false positive. So this is by far the biggest myth. And there's been randomized control trials for several years showing that creatine causes no detrimental effects to the kidneys.
I had exactly that twice on my blood tests.
Yes. And if you're also, creatinine can be elevated if you're on a high meat diet, a little bit dehydrated. So those that are exercising is very, very elevated. So always tell your doctor you're on creatine supplementation because your creatinine could be a little bit higher.
Okay.
Yep. Myth number 2. Creatine makes you retain water. So this is really important. And I think this is one of the main reasons females were really hesitant to take creatine. If you take too much too soon, it can lead to an increase in water retention. So you've probably heard of the creatine loading phase. This is where supplement companies want you to take about 20 or 30 grams a day for about 5 or 7 days. That has been shown to increase water retention acutely. So maybe it'll reside there for about 3 to 5 days. But after that, when you go on a maintenance phase of about 3 to 5 grams a day, that water retention goes away. So in the initial stages, if done improperly or too much, it can cause a little bit of water retention. The good news for everybody watching is after about the first week, that water's inside our muscle. So now we're volumizing the size of our muscle, sort of like a balloon here. It's full of water. Now, after a while, the water is now going into our muscle. It's a lot bigger compared to a deflated balloon or muscle that didn't have any water. So creatine is osmotic. Water likes to follow creatine. So by taking it into the muscle, it gets a lot bigger. And that's good because a swollen muscle stimulates protein synthesis to get bigger and stronger.
Oh, really?
Yes.
A swollen muscle stimulates protein synthesis.
Yeah. So when you have water coming in, that's a really good thing. And creatine does that, and that's one of the main mechanisms why it works.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that if I have creatine in my muscle, I'm more likely to gain muscle?
That is potentially the factor, because when you're having or trapping water, it turns on all these signaling pathways that are involved in protein synthesis. And one of the biggest robust evidence is that creatine increases lean tissue mass and regional muscle thickness with weight training over time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people are concerned that they're going to put on lots of weight and be bloated with creatine.
The interesting there is if you take smaller, more microdosing, there's hardly any effect. And this might come surprising, but if you did a 6-week study, pre and post after creatine, you only increase mass by 0.86 kilograms.
Oh, wow.
And the majority of that is lean mass. So at the end of the day, a 1.5 pounds is not a lot.
Lean mass?
Lean mass, yeah.
Which is?
We think of lean mass, most people think of it as muscle, but lean mass in our body, that includes water, connective tissue, organs, as well as skeletal muscle. And about 50% of our lean mass is muscle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, myth number 3. Creatine is only for men. This is 100% false. When you go through the totality of all the evidence, females respond extremely robustly to creatine supplementation. They get profound benefits in strength, endurance, and performance. They lose a little bit of body fat. So there's another idea that people thought water retention was causing an increase in fat mass. We've done some meta-analysis now showing that creatine reduces fat mass. Females get an increase in lean mass as well. And I'm happy this one came up because from our lab with bone health, females do respond very favorably with creatine and bone. And we can talk about that as well. Myth number 4. Oh, I can't believe you did this one to me. Creatine causes hair loss. So obviously looking at me, and I'm a prolific creatine researcher and taking creatine religiously for the last 2.5 decades, people would look at me and say, well, obviously looking at him, creatine caused this. And I was going bald before I started taking creatine. This myth came from a study in rugby players decades ago where creatine, about 20 to 25 grams a day for 7 days, increased a hormone called DHT. It's a precursor for testosterone, which unfortunately has been linked to hair follicle loss and thinning. But the ironic thing is when creatine was given to these young males, the hormone went up, but it was still within the biological range, and no measure of hair follicle thinning or loss was done. The cool thing is, just a few years ago, they decided to put this theory to the test, and 5 grams in young males for about 6 to 8 weeks of training caused no detrimental effect from hair thinning, follicle loss. So my appearance was probably based on something else. So there's no evidence to that as well. Myth number 5, creatine causes muscle cramps. No, I think this is so overplayed. When creatine is taken into the body and water will follow it, now you're super hydrating the muscle. So one of the main issues with muscle cramps is it could be, dehydration in the muscle. Some people have heard of sodium potassium. That's why Gatorade was invented. But if anything, sodium decreases muscle cramps and it super hydrates. So in the hotter environments, June, July, August, creatine is going to be one of your best friends.
So those are the 5 myths.